Hello, my gorgeous friends. I am so excited to be exploring some Piscean energy today. Pisces energy is some of my favorite energy to work with. I'm always drawn to it. And this Pisces new moon is really, really special. It's the kind of new moon that only happens every once in a while, where all these components are working together in such a symbiotic fashion and such a symbolically rich fashion. And the Pisces new moon is always a special time of year. This is our last new moon within the 12 zodiac signs, and Pisces is about completion, fruition, coming into something larger than ourselves. It's the bigger arc of existence where we start off with the I am of Aries and we move through an entire cycle of experiences and understanding. And when we get to the Piscean energy in its big macro sense, this is about transmuting into the larger wholeness of this universe, of connecting with it. It's about reconnecting with the energetics of things, the hidden order of things. And so this is part of the reason why I always love working with Piscean energy. To me, it is a cornerstone of my own life and all of the practices I do. And I think a Pisces new moon as well, it's about endings and closeouts as well as beginnings, because new moons are always about the richness of the soil, sitting in that soil and feeling the pops and crackles and the things awakening within us. And it being Pisces, this is also about how we notice those awakenings feeling different and slightly having a different flavor, a different feel than maybe we've felt certain urges and impulses before. And contextualizing this new moon is really fun as well, because it's happening on March 2nd, 2022, right in the heart of Pisces season. It's happening just after both Mercury and Venus have finished up their post-shadow phases. So we've really closed out a lot of the retrograde work we were doing in the last couple of months. All the planets are direct at this time. This new moon also holds a special place, I think, in our adjusting to the North Node being in Taurus and Jupiter being in Pisces as well. And this new moon is actually nearly conjunct Jupiter. So we're working with a lot of the new energies that are key to 2022 and are very, very different than the energies we were working with the last 2 years in both 2020 and 2021. And so I think this new moon as well is a really, really great place to check in with yourself when it comes to some of these new energies we're working with, how they're feeling, how that's changing the way you connect with the life that you are living, how that's changing the dreams and the visions that are wanting to come to life. Another key thing I just want to point out before we get into the specifics of this new moon is that this is about not getting tighter and more controlled when we start thinking about the things that we want to explore or experience, but about loosening our grip a little bit, relaxing, and not being drug along on the path, right? It's that allowing a little bit of grace and space for mystery to fill up part of this process. But let's get into some of the things that are happening during this new moon, because it's packed with symbolism. So the sun and the moon are conjunct at 12 degrees of Pisces, making that beautiful new moon, making that nice, dark, crisp, clear night. And those two are just 2 degrees away from Jupiter. So this is a new moon deeply aligned with Jupiter. And that means this is a moon about exploring the things that are growing and wanting to move within us. The dreams, the visions. Jupiter wants to kind of expand everything, right? And this new moon is going to be expanded when it comes to our sensitivity, our innate knowing, our intuitive wisdom. The intuitive knowing of what it is we need to shift and move toward. It really, really expands that. Of course, this can heighten our sensitivity at this time. It can heighten emotions or places where we are feeling things. These are really great tool sets, though, that can help us clarify what it is that maybe is working or what it is that we are wanting to move beyond. And I think with a Pisces new moon, the goal isn't to have a master plan and have bullet points of everything you need to take with you moving forward on the journey. A Pisces new moon is going to be more about allowing yourself to feel through what's coming up for you, allow space for that mystery, allow that maybe you won't have all the answers during this new moon, but that it's okay to feel them and to just peel back the cover and look inside a little bit. And that's really what this conjunction with Jupiter is going to do. But this new moon also sextiles our dear friend Uranus over in Taurus nearly exactly. And sextiles are always very symbiotic energies. This is all about flow. So we've got Jupiter and Uranus sextiling, we've got a new moon sextiling Uranus, which means that, Uranus is all about breaking patterns, disrupting tried and true patterns and doing something different. And this sextile that's so harmonious with Jupiter and the sun and the moon means that this is about how we disrupt patterns in creative and loving ways, how we disrupt patterns in the way that we start to treat ourselves, in the way we start to dream, in the way that we break generational expectations of what it means to be successful, joyful, happy. All of these things are very much locked into our cultural cookie cutter kind of ideas of what these words mean. And so this new moon is also an invitation to re-examine how you define success, happiness, contentedness, well-being. What do you want those definitions to be? And do you need to break up with some of the definitions and ideas of what these things in your life really mean? Now, this is a new moon because we're working with Piscean energy that is somewhat about transmutation. Now, I know a lot of times we think about transformation and transmutation in the context of Scorpio, but Pisces is another transmutational force. It's the final sign, and it is about expanding and floating into the bigness of the universe. It's kind of like the Divine Comedy, Dante's Divine Comedy. When we get to Paradiso, a lot of the themes and images that he uses in Paradiso are very, very linked to Piscean wisdom and imagery. And I can't get into a whole Dante's Divine Comedy conversation, but that's some of the imagery that I like to think about when I'm thinking about Piscean energy. So this is also about the skin we're shedding. It's also about what we are leaving behind. And that is influenced as well by these other conjunctions happening in the context of this new moon. Venus, Mars, and Pluto are going to be conjunct over in Capricorn, around 26, 27 degrees of Capricorn during this new moon. Now, this is quite the meetup. We've got the feminine receptivity energy of Venus. We've got the action-based energy of Mars. We have the exploratory, transmutational, transformational energy of Pluto, all conversing here. And this is really a wrap-up of Venus's work as well during her retrograde. And this is a moment where we are understanding what it is we've just learned, and also understanding that we can't go back to the way things have been. There is no trying to contain ourselves in old forms of who we have been. And this isn't just about the larger culture and saying there is no normal to go back to. This is much more about the personal experience of understanding that change is innate, it is natural, it is something that we don't need to fight, and it's okay to relax into it a little bit more and trust ourselves a little bit more. And we also have Mercury and Saturn conjunct in Aquarius. All of the energy is kind of packed into Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces during this new moon. And because of that, these are the last signs of the zodiac. So this is about a lot of fruition and completion. This is a lot about coming to the end of one energetic cycle, understanding what it is that you needed to learn. And with every ending, there is also an invitation to get very, very honest about what it is that is feeling right for you at this time. And this can go anywhere from being really subtle shifts to being deeper truths that maybe you haven't felt quite ready to face into or have made you a little bit nervous to face into. And I think what I want to say before, let me start shuffling some cards here. What I want to say before we get into the cards is that it's okay to be different. It's okay to not hold yourself so tightly. It's also okay to feel a little nervous that you're changing. It's also okay to feel a little bit of resistance. But I think this new moon is very much supporting us and holding us in allowing ourselves to notice, ooh, I'm feeling really tight and tense and wanting to control and wanting to have all the answers about this thing that's changing, whether it be that like my body has changed, or like my life path has changed, or my work has changed, or my relationships have changed, or my desires or my daydreams have changed. All of these things can be things that might be coming up during this new moon. And I think it helps us to give a little bit of space and context to welcome and enjoy transmutation and to feel that we are supported and safe within that. And I think in that way, this new moon is so beautiful. And quite honestly, it is a very fortuitous kind of energy. Whenever you have a new moon conjunct Jupiter and sextiling Uranus, this is about exploration, creativity, play, drawing outside the lines, coloring with weird, different colors that you've never used before. High Priestess came out. I'm going to follow that up with one more card. It's all about just trying things a little bit differently. So this is also a great time. It doesn't have to be these huge, epic life turnover kind of moments, but during this new moon, if you usually journal or draw or paint or go about your routine a certain way, try doing it a little different. And Eight of Cups. Yep, there you go. There's the transmutation. Very, very clear energy going on here. So High Priestess, I always deeply associate with a lot of the Piscean rhythm of life. You know, she's the initiator. She initiates us into a deeper learning, a hidden secret world that we don't see in the physical. We don't see in the way that we control things via taking those action steps and, you know, making things happen, which is part of the whole equation. But High Priestess energy and Pisces new moon energy is going to ask us to put that down for a moment and allow there to be enough negative space, enough quiet to hear what it is that needs to be heard at this time, and to be aware that maybe there are certain patterns that need to be broken at this time, and that there are certain aspects of ourselves that have just left, and it is time to find some peace and grace within that. And High Priestess is the initiator of this type of medicine, healing, and exploration. And she is not going to be focusing so much on the practical how-to guide of how to get this done and make it perfect and have it be sparkly. Eight of Cups is a card that I always think about leaving the party at the time that is right for you. You know, we often want to stay with things that we've loved and appreciated, right? Like, it's hard to leave behind certain things that are familiar, and they may have been really loving and wonderful at another time, right? Like a job or a location or a group of friends or a project or even an identity or an apartment. There are places that just, they always were supportive of us, always loving of us, but we can tell we've changed and we have to move on. And we realize that it's time to leave that specific party, even though it's a joyful party, even though it's a party that served us and we served others and it was beautiful. The Eight of Cups is that invitation, you know, that there are certain times when it is time to go on that new journey. I always love the Eight of Cups energy too, because this is about somebody who's going on a journey. They're going on a quest. They're going to seek their path. And sometimes that means leaving behind certain aspects, even when they have served us very beautifully and been a beautiful part of our lives. And this new moon is really helping us to find some peace with any parts of ourselves, at any parts of the journey and the path and the exploration that we can feel are coming to a close at this time. And remembering too that those are big feelings, but that there is this path ahead, that there are these kind of little seeds and ideas that are springing to life beneath the surface. And we can also hear this during this new moon. But the really big takeaway as we close out this chat today is not to gird yourself for this new moon or for any of the changes or the emotions that maybe are wanting to come up with you during this time. It's about getting relaxed enough and loose enough to hear yourself and feel safe within it. So I'm going to be doing an activation over on Patreon to kind of help with that process, to feel through it. I'm going to walk us all through a way to release some of the tension that we can hold in our bodies when we feel a little nervous about how we are changing. I'm really excited to do it. So I'd love to see you there. We're always doing activations, weekly chats. I talk about a little of the wild adventure I'm on in my own life. So I'd love to see you there. But just remember that this is an intuitive new moon. This is about sensing and feeling something that you can't quite see in the physical. It's also about making peace with how we've changed. So we don't need to hold on too tight here. It's really about taking a breath and relaxing, so that we can hear and we can work with the medicine of High Priestess and Eight of Cups and what we're walking away from and what we are walking toward at this time. It's also a great calibrator for getting used to the energy we are working with in 2022. I am so excited to see what this new moon brings for all of us as we wrap up the Western astrological year. And we move through the last weeks of the zodiac signs and through the last of Pisces and head toward Aries season. I will see you all very, very soon. I hope you are having a beautiful time. You can find me on my website, on my Instagram. There's only one True Sarah. And like I mentioned, on my Patreon, where we do a lot of fun stuff together. I love you all so much. I am so happy that you are hanging out with me here and hanging out on the adventure. I will talk to you all very soon. Have a gorgeous new moon in Pisces, my friends.